Hi, everyone. How's it going? I hope you're doing really well, no matter where you are in the world. I'm glad that you're here tuning in with me today. I've got some really great questions that I'm excited to tackle right now. So let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right in. So there is a question here from Sam. I'm a straight passing lesbian and I'm struggling with it. I wear mostly yoga clothing because I like being comfortable, which translates to a basic white girl wardrobe. Dating as a gay person in general isn't for the weak. I approach girls, but my gaydar must be terrible because they always end up being straight. On the other hand, I'm approached by men frequently, which is maddening. I wish I could be approached by a girl the way I am approached by men at least once in my lifetime. This, by the way, Sam, is an age old problem. So you are speaking to many, many people's struggle right now. But let me keep going. When I've asked for advice in the past, it's been pretty much confirmed that I look like I'd be straight. I don't wear makeup or girly colors. I thought that would be enough, but I guess I was wrong. I'm comfortable in my femininity. How can I signal to other women that I'm available without pretending to be someone I'm not? Yeah, so this is a struggle, and especially when you're, straight passing and nobody assumes that you are queer. I think you've got to be strategic about where you are spending time and where you're looking to meet people. So you want to put yourself in environments where they're going to be where it's obvious that there could be LGBT people, folks, single folks in the room that are also, straight appearing. It sounds like maybe that's your preference, and it's hard to tell if, right, if somebody is gay, if they're really feminine and they don't, right, they're not, they maybe don't walk with that, for me, I notice like this, there's a little swagger sometimes, and I'm like, oh, I think she's part of the community. I think she's on our team. Or there's just like subtle styles, like you were saying, you typically wear yoga pants and kind of have that look where nobody could tell. So that's my suggestion to you is to find out where you can go hang out where there are other LGBTQ folks similar to yourself and put yourself out there. And the other thing is just be open about it. Like if you're engaging with somebody, you could just say that, however you identify, you're part of the community or however, put it out there, which gives them permission to also share, well, oh, that's interesting, me too, or ask you more about that if they have some curiosities and maybe they haven't, they're curious, but they haven't explored. And maybe there's a little window for them to learn from you. Like you just communicate. Don't be afraid to say something about how you identify, especially if you're wanting to connect with this person and you don't know if they're gay or queer. So that would be my recommendation. But the best bet is get yourself out there in front of people that are actually part of the community. Hopefully that's helpful. Jordan, my friends and family keep harassing me to date men, even though I have made it very clear that I'm a lesbian. Many of these people are supposedly LGBTQ friendly, but aren't acting like it. I understand that part of it is cultural. I'm South Asian. People might be trying to be helpful and set me up for success by getting me a man to fix things around the house and take care of me, even if I'm not attracted to him. But I don't need a man for that. I'm doing just fine on my own. Some of my family members have implied that I'm just afraid of men, or maybe because I've always been on the quiet side. What comebacks can I use to get them to respect my sexuality? Jordan, I can totally relate to this because I remember coming out, almost 30 years ago, and I was very, very feminine, and people would say, no way, Frankie, that you're a lesbian. Oh, you must just be experimenting. You're just curious, and but you can't be a lesbian because you're too feminine. So these are people who don't understand, right? They don't understand what it is to be gay, to be queer, to be lesbian, to be bi, whatever. They don't understand what it is to be different in this way. And they want you to fit into a paradigm or a mold that they're used to hearing about, which is the heterosexual dynamic, right? That's what's familiar to them. So they're thinking that you need to get married because you need a man to help you around the house that can fix things and so on. And it sounds like you are quite self-sufficient and capable of taking care of things for yourself and also are clear about your sexual orientation, which they don't understand. So I think in terms of comebacks, it's just keep living in your truth and in your authenticity. And just, if you're consistent and there isn't really waffling or confusion in terms of what you're looking for and how you identify, eventually the hope would be that they would start to realize that this isn't going away and that you are happy just the way you are in the sexuality that you are in, and that makes sense to you, and that will calm their systems because there's no confusion. It's been consistent. You keep showing up in the same way. And I imagine that their persistence right now in finding you a man or encouraging you to find yourself a man will wane over time. So just be, solid in your truth and be consistent. And I think over time, I'm pretty certain it's going to get better. All of that will start to reduce in intensity, and they'll start to understand that you are who you are, and they don't need to understand completely the ins and outs. They don't even need to accept it completely. They just need to be respectful of how you choose to live your life, and who you choose to be with intimately behind closed doors as is none of their business. So, hope that's helpful, Jordan. All right, Tina writes in, I've been with my wife for nearly 30 years. We raised two kids, are recently empty nesters. From very early on in our relationship, sex between us wasn't great. She has less interest in physical intimacy, and I had much more. At one point, I had an affair that she knew about, but ended it because she and our family were more important to me. But trust was broken, and for years, I have worked hard to gain it back. And I always thought that the lack of intimacy was my fault from then on. But recently, when I have made gestures, she told me she just doesn't like physical intimacy, that it's not about the trust. She just doesn't like it. And I'm yearning for and need physical touch and sex. I don't know what to do. I'm only 56 and don't want to lose her and want to bring up an open relationship. But I hinted at that once and she unraveled. I love her. I don't want to leave her, but what do I do? Tina, life is short. I know it feels really, it can be long, but it goes fast. And, it's like, it's so important for us to be able to live our life to the fullest. And I know it sounds like you really, really love her. You've been together 30 years, you've raised kids together. She's probably your best friend, would be my guess. And you don't want to hurt her and you want to stay in the relationship. But at the same time, you're not getting your needs met. And physical intimacy is enormously important if that's something that you desire. And there are plenty of people that just they don't need it. It's good enough to be in a relationship where there's companionship and trust and intimacy in terms of physical, like touch and maybe communication and things like that. But you're needing physical intimacy, it sounds like sex and so on. So I think bringing up gently with a therapist or a coach, a sex coach, somebody or an intimacy coach, somebody who's an expert and really familiar with working with couples who are dealing with what you're dealing with, which is very, very common, especially in long-term relationships. It's not going to be hard for you to find somebody who has a lot of experience in this area. I would suggest pursuing some work with them. In that way, it's a safe container and you can start to explore what's true for you. And, at the same time, making sure that your partner knows that you want to stay with her. You don't want to leave her. You want to make it work, but you love her, but you also love yourself. And in that, you want to figure out a way forward to honor your needs and to also respect her needs and where she's at, which is not wanting to have physical touch or physical intimacy. Sorry. The other thing is, it sounds like the affair happened years ago. And I think that it sounds like you took a lot of responsibility for that, rightfully so, for that betrayal. And you've worked really hard to repair and invest in the relationship and rebuild trust. But at a certain point, you can't keep blaming yourself for the lack of intimacy in the relationship. There's two people in this relationship. And yes, you made a mistake, but we make mistakes. And the fact that you've been working on it, rebuilding trust, and it's been a long time and you're still in the relationship and you keep choosing each other, that tells me that there's a lot of love here, and I think you've got to stop blaming yourself for that. It's like recognizing you've done the work, you're here and you want intimacy, and it's okay and you're worth it and worthy of it. So, yeah, I think the affair has nothing to do with what is at hand right now, which is different, different desires, different libido. There are plenty of people that have a very low libido or none at all. And there's a range like everything. And I encourage you to work with somebody, talk about it. And I believe I've seen clients in my own office figure out a way forward and they stay together. And they're actually closer and more intimate emotionally than ever before when they have these tough conversations and they do the tough work. On the other side is such deep love and respect that I encourage you to step into that. And you're going to be afraid. It's scary. There are going to be things that are going to scare you, but that doesn't mean you should avoid it. Now more than ever, we should be having these hard conversations. So thanks, Tina. Maggie, got one more question here from Maggie. And she writes in, I recently read your article about responsive desire versus spontaneous desire. And I realize I am not sure what I am. I have been with my partner for a couple of years and our sex life is waning. And I want to understand if this is something where maybe we are not connecting. I think both of us are getting shy about initiating it, or maybe I am overthinking it. I know I desire her, but sometimes not sure she is in the mood, so I don't do anything. Can you explain the difference between the two again? Great question. Still desire. Like it's not necessarily the behavior, that feeling, that desire isn't what shows up first. It's that, when you are intimate, that it actually provides pleasure and connection and enjoyment. So sometimes it's just hard to get started. So what I always tell people is, if you know that you're wanting to have, connection and closeness with your partner, and you recognize it's really important that exists, just initiate, even though you may be turned down. Being turned down is part of it. But if both people recognize that it's hard to be turned down, we want to try not to do that. We want to try to say yes whenever someone initiates in the relationship, because it takes a lot of courage to do so. And you want to respond positively and engage. And what you'll realize if you pay attention, if you monitor how you're feeling and how you're thinking, you're feeling more connected and excited that you actually, that your partner engaged you in this way, because it deepens intimacy and it feels amazing, right? So recognizing that you may not spontaneously feel desire. You have to act as if, and then there is this excitement and this joy that comes from it. Most people, I would say, in general, struggle with that initiation because there's this fear of rejection, and it doesn't feel good to anybody. But it's important to recognize that we're not always going to say yes. Our partners are not always going to say yes. But again, it's important to discuss the importance of saying yes more often than not, so that there is a sense of safety in the relationship where folks are going to say yes most often than not, so that there's not this big fear or this barrier that starts to develop over time. Because if somebody says no and declines your invitation repeatedly, it starts to feel really discouraging and hard to actually continue to take the risk and initiate. So I know that's way more than you asked for and that I talked about in my blog, but I thought I would add more since you've already read it or listened to it. So thanks so much, Maggie. And thank you all for submitting your questions, and keep them coming. I love them. I love to be here with you all. And I will see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Kisses, hugs. See you later.